Ranking Member Wyden for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joining the committee are Alex Adams, nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary for Family Support at the Administration for Children and Families. They're known as ACF. Jonathan Mccernan, nominated to serve as Undersecretary of Domestic Finance at the Treasury Department. The Administration for Children and Families is responsible for America's well-being of children and families. So I'm going to just do a quick rundown on where things are 6 months into the Trump presidency on those issues of health and safety. More than 15 million Americans, 15 million, are about to lose their health care so that there'd be tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy. Robert Kennedy has fired scientists and experts to put anti-vaccine quacks in charge of vaccine safety. He told this committee months ago he would do no such thing. The United States is currently suffering its worst measles outbreak in 30 years with 1,300 cases, 1,300, and still counting. The workforce and funding for agencies and programs that are designed to keep the American people safe and healthy have been gutted. In short, Donald Trump, Mr. Kennedy, and congressional Republicans have worked overtime. They've used their time for policies that make America weaker, sicker, and poorer. Now, that brings us to Dr. Adams. My team has been talking to advocates on the ground in Idaho, and it would be an understatement to say that they're alarmed about what has been going on in that state, in his state, harming vulnerable children, families, and people with disabilities, and that actions that he has been supportive of, if confirmed nationwide, would cause children to suffer. Now, he is a proponent of deregulation at any cost, what he and other elites call zero-based regulation. But let me put this in English, folks. I was director of the Gray Panthers and senior citizens for about 7 years and listened to all this government talk. When I hear zero-based regulation, it tells me there are no guardrails. That's what we always want in policy. We want people to have the freedom to make as many choices as they possibly can that are theirs and their families, but we got to have some guardrails. And we have been looking at some of what has happened in Idaho, and particularly lowering safety standards in licensure for kids with disabilities. So the person in charge of ACF is responsible for overseeing Head Start programs that are struggling right now to keep their doors open due to funding uncertainty. This person is responsible for making sure that there are basic health and safety rules for child care in America. This person is responsible for the protection of unaccompanied immigrant kids who now languish in detention while Donald Trump co-opts the Child Welfare Agency for immigration enforcement. On top of this, ACF for the first time is going to be responsible for senior nutrition, something I care deeply about from those Gray Panther days, and protection and advocacy for seniors and Americans with disabilities, among other critical services for our communities. In the fallout of the HHS mass firings, more responsibility with fewer staff certainly has the potential for significant harm. Heading up ACF is a big job centered around keeping kids and communities safe. It goes without saying that America's children deserve a person who's going to follow smart and basic science, somebody who's going to go to the mat to keep kids healthy and safe no matter what their faith, their immigration status, or how they identify. And as we listen to people who have been on the ground in Idaho and elsewhere, this is a nomination that hasn't inspired confidence at this point. Let me turn to Jonathan Mccernan's nomination to serve as Undersecretary of Domestic Finance at Treasury Department. There is Mr. Mccernan. Appreciate him being here. If confirmed, he'd play a major role in how the federal government organizes its debt and how Treasury handles the most sensitive data of American taxpayers. Over the last few months, who has access to that data and how it's been handled has been called into serious question as DOGE and its rogue employees wrestled to get their hands on this sensitive information. This committee has played a leading role in talking about what's been going on at DOGE. In fact, it was our committee investigators who blew the whistle when the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, gave away early on the keys to the kingdom, the keys to this Fort Knox of data. And Donald Trump and people around him are weaponizing federal agencies to go after free speech and the people and groups that they disagree with. So what's needed in this role is a person who's going to stand firm against the Trump campaigning of chaos and corruption. So we'll look forward to hearing from Mr. Mccernan on how he intends to stand up to that kind of bedlam if he's confirmed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.